Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. We've got a big PvP update when it comes to 10.1.5 changes, as well as just overall class changes and some changes that are likely going to affect Mythic Plus to a very large degree. If you want to make sure that you're staying ahead of the competition, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated on my long-term goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers. But let's get started here. For classes specifically, we are updating player totems and pets that are immune to buffs and debuffs to now only be immune to buffs. This is primarily a PvP change to allow damage over time effects to apply to totems so that all specializations have reasonable means to damage them. And this is a big change for PvP. So these Warlock classes, Balanced Druid, Shadow Priest, they're going to have more options for sniping totems, whether it be healing streams for Ellies or Enhance or Resto Shamans. Obviously, you're a Shaman player. You're pretty sad about this, pretty tragic, but now those effects aren't going to completely hard counter those. I still think it's probably going to be pretty hard to kill a totem. Even if you gave it a full row of dots, I don't know if you would kill it before it got its full value healing, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, here come the big changes that are going to affect Mythic Plus and PvP. They're targeting like group-wide healing cooldowns like Nature's Vigil. The duration is going to be reduced to 15 seconds down from 30. That is a huge nerf. I'm probably never going to take this talent in PvP anymore. But this is, again, I think more aimed at the cooldown's potency in PvE and just indirectly going to be making it worse in PvP as well. For Balanced Druid, we're getting another rework. I thought that we were in a really good spot, and I'm really surprised that we're getting more attention, but we're getting a little bit of a rework here. For the following changes are working towards providing more build diversity, which is strange to me because I feel like I have a lot of options, but in PvE maybe not. That's probably why they're changing it. Though we're happy with the current builds and we want them to remain popular, we'd like Stellar Flare to be a competitive option against a small number of targets, so we're reducing the duration of Astral Smolder to make Stellar Flare or Wild Mushrooms more competitive at maintaining Waning Twilight. We're equalizing New Moon and Fury of Valoon a bit, easing up the importance of entering Eclipse with a Nature's Grace change. Since many of these tweaks involve pulling back the power of current popular options, we're increasing balances damage across the board to compensate. So the change to Eclipse and Nature's Grace is a big one. They're just going to be buffing all of our damage by 5%. Waning Twilight damage and healing is getting buffed to 10 up from 8, so it's going to be more important to be maintaining 3 dots. Probably going to bring down the power of the AoE build a bit. Astral Smolder is only 4 seconds down from 8. That's a really big nerf. It already wasn't too powerful in PvP. For Wild Surges, it's also getting nerfed. The crit chance of Starfire, so our chances to apply it is lower, and the duration after we apply it is lower, so that build's getting much weaker. Warrior of Valoon now starts its cooldown as soon as it's activated, but the bonuses to your next 3 Starfires must be used within 25 seconds. This is kind of a buff nerf. I have to wait and see how this plays out, but I kind of like that. That way, if you accidentally just don't spend the last charge, there's no way for you to do it, or you don't want to break a CC, you're still working towards the second cooldown reset. Now, this is actually a big buff. Lunar Shrapnel has been redesigned. Starfall is just going to do 20% increased damage, and it's 1 talent point, as opposed to like that random extra AoE damage on Starfall. You're going to want to take that in the Starfall build. That's crazy. Like, that's actually crazy. That's going to compensate more than anything for everything else that has changed here. Umbral Intensity increases the damage done by Wrath by 20% per point, and damage Starfire deals to nearby targets increased to 15% from 10%. Nature's Grace is now only going to trigger after an eclipse ends, and not when extending an eclipse to Celestial Alignment. Kind of sad, because this is like, your burst damage is going to be going down during that window for your dot ticks, because it's at the end of the eclipse, so your dots aren't ticking faster at the end of it. So this is honestly like the biggest change that I'm not sure if it it's been compensated enough with this other stuff, but you're going to notice that. Fury of Valoon is also just getting 10% damage nerf. Radiant Moonlight, the cooldown reduction of Fury of Valoon, it's going to be only 15 seconds instead of 20, so it's longer cooldown. They're buffing New Moon damage by 100%, Half Moon by 45%, and Full Moon by 15%. And nerfing the proc Full Moon from 80% power to 60%. So the RNG procking Full Moon, this is also a big one. The nerf here and the nerf to Nature's Grace in PvP is going to affect the build for Boomkin a lot. The Primordial Arcanic Pulsar tracking buff now counts up to 100 instead of 15. This is a cosmetic change only. So big changes for Boomkin again for 10.1.5. We got an update for the Augmentation Evoker, the new specialization. Emerald Blossom's Flower now grows immediately on cast and heals after 1.5 seconds down from 2. So Emerald Blossom is going to be a little bit easier to use. Pupil of Alexstrasza now only launches 1 additional Living Flame when Leaping Flames is active. Previously, it was casting an extra Living Flame for every Leaping Flames charge. New talent, Dream of Spring. Emerald Blossom Blossom no longer has a cooldown. Deals 35% increased healing and increases the duration of your active Ebon Might by 1 second, but costs 3 essence. Emerald Blossom will now benefit from and consume Essence Burst. In a future PTR build, Dream of Spring will be moved to a choice node with prolonged life. Interesting, because I was worried about the healing for Augmentation Evoker, but this isn't really like the best healing ability, at least when it comes to PvP. Activate Weir Stone is now usable while moving. That's the teleport to your ally 100 yards away. That's like the big main mechanic that the class is getting that could be really strong. Aberrus, the Shadowed Crucible set bonuses, so we can take a peek at your set bonuses. Ebon Might will increase the damage of your empowered spells by 30%, and Ebon Might will grant an additional 1% primary stat to each ally. Biggest problem with Augmentation Evoker is that Ebon Might is applied to 4 nearby allies, and in Arena there's only 2 or 1. So there needs to be something to compensate that in Arena. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but I feel like it's going to be much weaker in smaller group content due to the fact of this buff only affecting 4 and being tuned for 4, but there's only 2 targets to buff in those areas of the game. Life Giver's Flame now heals up to 5 injured targets, split evenly amongst them, was 1 injured target, range increased to 40 yards up from 25. For Paladins, this is like the rework patch for you guys, so this is a really important update. New talent, Blessed Light. Glimmer of Light's healing and damage is increased by 10%, but it can only affect 1 target at a time, so giving you a little bit of more increased single target. Divine Revelations has been redesigned. While empowered by Infusion of Light, Flash of Light heals for an additional 20%, and Holy Light or Judgment refund 1% of your maximum mana. That's a really big change. Gonna make Flash of Light a lot better, and also giving you the choice between some mana regeneration, which is a mechanic I like to see for Holy Paladin. Tears Deliverance is just getting buffed by it will also increase the healing of Holy Shot by 25%, so giving it a buff outside of just its own heal over time effect, giving you like maybe a secondary almost kind of vibe of Avenging Wrath. Boundless Salvation now also triggers from Holy Shock to extend the duration of Tears Deliverance by 2.5 seconds. Interesting. So synergies with other talents. Boundless Salvation's tooltip has been updated to be more succinct. Daybreak now triggers Glimmer of Light for 150% value and no longer costs mana. Avenging Wrath Might now increases the critical strike chance by 15%, but down from 20. Avenging Wrath now increases healing damage by 15%, down from 20. Interesting that they're nerfing your cooldowns, but likely offsetting this in your the other windows. Avenging Crusader now transfers 400% of the damage up from 500%, so nerfing Melee Wings. Touch of Light healing increased by 700%. I don't know what that is, but if they buffed it by 700%, it really sucked. And even though 700%, maybe it's not even enough when something's that sucky. Crusader Strike cooldown increased by 30%, down from 50%, so you're still gonna be able to Crusader Strike. Infusion of Light now causes Flash of Light to cost 70% less mana. Previously it was 30, and causes Holy Light to generate 2 Holy Power, so you're gonna be a lot more mana efficient. Hand of Divinity now reduces the mana cost of Holy Light by 100%. Shield of Righteous damage increased by 30%, now reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike by 2 seconds. I don't know if you'd ever be able to wield the Shield of Righteous in PvP. Shield of Righteous now obeys the global cooldown and no longer increases armor. Fix an issue that caused Holy Shock's cooldown to not scale with haste. Oh, interesting. So you were just literally bugged and not getting proper cooldown reduction. So that's a nice bug fix. For Shadow Priest, they're doing the same type of nerf. Vampiric Embrace is getting nerfed to 12 seconds down from 15. Honestly, it's getting nerfed the least of all of this kind of hybrid mechanic. It is going to impact PvP, but Shadow will probably feel it the least. For Outlaw Rogue, Grand Melee, one of the buffs granted by Roll to Bones has been redesigned. Blade Flurry deals 10% additional damage to nearby enemies, including your primary target. I don't think you're going to Blade Flurry in PvP. This is likely only for PvE. For Shaman, Brimming with Life now increases your maximum health by 8% at all times. Was previously while Reincarnation was off cooldown. This way you just always benefit from the stamina is how they explained it. And Ancestral Guidance, this is where you're going to really feel it. You got nerfed harder than anybody else. Now only converts single target damaging abilities into healing. Was previously all damage abilities. The conversion of healing spells into healing has been unchanged. Developers notes, we are reducing the effectiveness of group healing from DPS to damage to healing conversion sources. The abilities affected are Vampiric Embrace, Nature's Vigil, and Ancestral Guidance. While we want hybrid DPS to be able to contribute healing to the group, these spells have become powerful enough to temporarily alleviate a healer's role without interrupting the hybrid DPS's rotation. It makes sense for PvE. These spells were also very powerful in PvP, but the way that they nerfed them doesn't seem to be very equivalent. So we'll have to wait and see how it ultimately plays out. For Elemental, Earthquake's tooltip now states that multiple earthquakes can overlap. This is not a change of functionality, only a clarification. And finally, we're going to look at some of the new PvP talents for Augmentation Evoker. The first one has been released. Born in Flame. Ebon Might now causes your living flame to become instant cast while it is active. So this is the buff you maintain through a casted spell, and then you could just jam out instant living flames, which is crazy because it's probably going to hit really hard and can also heal. So, you know, this would be like the equivalent of instant healing surges from an elemental shaman, or instant regrowths from a balanced druid. So this could be really good. This might, you know, enable you a lot, because a lot of the other things I don't think are going to work too well for you in PvP. We'll have to wait and see on future updates. But that is it for this one. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching the video, and thank you very much for watching.